welcome to the Giraffe Social Media Podcast. It's what social media managers are talking about. I'm Katie, and today I'm joined by Chloe and Ellie. Coming up on this week's episode, we'll be discussing our social media nightmares, as well as sharing our top tips for avoiding them. So guys, we are officially in spooky season with Halloween right around the corner. I'm thrilled. Don't know about you guys. This is the season where I thrive. And I don't know a better way to celebrate than to share some horror stories. Now, I'm not talking ghost schools and monsters. I'm thinking of something more terrifying. Social media nightmares. As content creators, we've seen them happen, and unless I have horrendous bad luck, we've all certainly experienced them firsthand as well. Mm-hmm. So I think, let's have a sharing session. Let's share our social media horror stories that we have seen or been part of. Chloe, do you want to kick us off?
Of course. This is the first time I might share a horror story at Halloween that I've actually lived through. So this is fun. I have two kind of social media horror stories that really stand out to me. One, as I mentioned, is a lived experience. The other I just watched happen, which is definitely the preferred version of the two if we're going to talk about it. But my first one is one that I'm sure all the listeners have also lived through. It's kind of just like, your initiation into becoming a social media manager, and that is spelling mistakes. We've all done it. We're all friends here. It's fine. I once made a TikTok video for a brand, and after uploading it, I realized that the caption within the video, so not like the caption underneath, the caption embedded in the video had a spelling error in it. This was before the time, I don't know what took them so long, or if maybe this is just like something that happened to me, but TikTok didn't have spell check integrated into their software. So every time you wrote a caption within your video, like if you put a spelling mistake in there, it wouldn't like show up with a red line. It would just be like, yeah, go on, like post it.
Do it.
Yeah. So I kind of feel like this is TikTok's fault, but it's, we'll move past that. And what was annoying is the video actually did super well. It gained like a couple thousand views before I had noticed. And so naturally, like I had to take it down. I couldn't kind of just let this video be up on a client's account with a spelling mistake in it, but it was truly like the worst thing because I had took it down, I had a few thousand views, and then I re-uploaded, and I think it did, almost as well, but it was kind of on that trajectory period when I had to take it down, so I'm not sure it would have reached the heights that it could have, but it's just a good lesson for you is that you are your own biggest enemy, and the only thing standing between you and virality is having to take a video down because you posted it with a spelling mistake.
Trust no one, not even yourself.
Exactly. If only you could put Grammarly on TikTok.
Oh God, yeah, I would love that. I have my personal enemy is spelling. If I was like a superhero, my supervillain would be proper spelling and grammar. It's the chokehold that Grammarly has on me, and if Grammarly fails me, that's it, I'm done.
I've just started telling people I'm dyslexic at this point because sometimes it happens. Keyboards are...
There's a correlation.
Totally. So, that's my first.
I mean, the question is, did anyone who had viewed it, did they recognise the mistake? Did they highlight that in the comments?
But that would have been welcome engagement. I would have let those comments roll in and let the algorithm do its thing. But no, unfortunately, the client themselves did see it, and they were the ones who actually flagged me to it. So that's always a little bit of a bruised ego moment. But as I said, the re-uploaded version did... it did well in its own right. So I guess it has a happy ending.
Oh, there's nothing worse than when people start calling you out for your post that you've made.
Yeah.
I don't know, if you've got an ad running at the wrong time when it's seasonal, and they're just like, oh, it's summer, why are you hosting this winter ad? And it's like,
just
please don't call me out.
I mean, speaking of seasonal, this is the worst segue of all time, but it leads me into my second example, if the floor will allow, and that is when brands fail to read the room in favor of a bit of shameless self-promotion. This is actually kind of one of my favorite kinds of social media nightmares, and as a social media manager, when I see it happen, I don't know whether to laugh or cry, because it is arguably a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but it's also incredibly cringe. So the first example I saw is actually quite a bit in the past now. It's from 2012, so it's not exactly a recent one. But it was the Gap clothing company during Hurricane Sandy over in the US put out a tweet, wishing their shoppers to stay safe. But they also used it as an opportunity to encourage users to shop on their website while stuck inside during the storm. So naturally this didn't go down well, and I actually saw a few other examples of this after looking at this one, but I cannot remember who they were. But it was actually a bit of a trend during Hurricane Sandy. A few brands really failed to read the room. I think Urban Outfitters was another one, and they said, this weather sure sucks, but something doesn't, or something like that. It was just a little bit horrific. But it reminds me of, Katie, you and I were talking about this the other day. This turned out to be a hoax, so I sent you misinformation, but it was where people thought that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson used Queen Elizabeth's death to promote his new movie. So as I said...
Oh, was that a hoax?
Yeah, so these tweets, because I wanted to use this example, and so I just thought I would double check if this actually happened. And it turns out that these were fake, but it went viral everywhere, and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson had to come out and kind of slam this, saying that he didn't. But I want to read out these tweets because they are actually hilarious, and I think if they were real, it's just another example of a bit of a social media horror story. So there were two of these fake tweets, allegedly from The Rock, and the first one said, "Rest in peace to Her Majesty the Queen, Elizabeth II, a great woman who sat on the throne as long as anyone in British history. So sad she'll never get to see #Black Adam in theatres October 21st. That was the first one, and then allegedly it was followed up with, "Everyone knows Black Adam has only two weaknesses, lightning and the death of a famous monarch. My condolences to the royal family during this difficult time. New #Black Adam trailer today at 5 p.m.
That's actually brilliant.
And now, whoever made these fake tweets, great publicity for the film, but I'm so glad that this didn't actually come from a real celebrity, because how...
I mean, it's hilarious though, right?
Absolutely hilarious. But truly, if that was like a brand, or you were Dwayne's social media intern, just, you're fired. Like...
I think kind of going off of that though, like, when the Queen did die and, we're in that national period of mourning, it was very clear that no one really knew what to do on social media. I don't know about you guys, I had to release like 4 different statements for clients that like basically all said the same thing, but no one wanted to do it wrong. But kind of going off of that, I don't know if you guys saw at the time, Center Parcs came under huge fire because this was something external to social media, where they announced that they were going to be closing the entire park for the day of the state funeral.
Okay, I missed this.
And they announced this on Twitter, which already is a terrible idea, announcing anything on Twitter. And what happened from that was what I can describe as a firestorm of people coming in being like outraged, because obviously you're not gonna, like, they were saying they were gonna kick everyone out of the park for the state funeral, and people were like, what? And I was just like watching like the replies come in, and I was like, I am gonna light a candle for this social media manager that is dealing with their community management, because I didn't envy them that day.
Oh my god.
Thing is though, oh sorry.
I was just gonna say, that's so interesting, because why are people, that to me feels like a good move from Center Parcs, but obviously the wrong place to
I
announce
think it was a case of they were moving, like everyone had to leave the park on that day. Like even if you had a holiday that was going over the day of the state being up, you had to pack up all your belongings and leave for a day.
I see. Do you know what's happened? I've confused Center Parcs with Thorpe Park, and I was like, why, if it's closed, you can't get in. Why would you already be there? So I see. That's
the
human
Australian
error.
jumped out.
I mean, surely they offered some like type of compensation for that.
Well, in the end, they
understand.
backpedaled twice on Twitter. So they were just like, okay, we'll let you in, but you're not allowed to leave your cabin.
What?
Yeah, I know. And then people were also, again, storming in on this tweet, being like, and then they were finally just like, okay, you're allowed to leave your cabin, but nothing's going to be open. So it was like, why did we have to go through all these like social media steps?
They should have got some like money refunded, surely.
Oh, yeah.
If
It was terrible.
they're going to like the leisure facilities. Yeah. That sounds awful.
Yeah. So I think that was probably like one of the worst reactions to the the statey fumes, as I saw them called on social.
Yeah, I don't think
we had
even
Platty Jubes, statey fumes.
not even the fake rock tweets got that level of backlash. So yeah, moment of silence for the Center Parcs intern.
Let's hope they're still in their job. Oh god. Ellie, do you kind of want to jump over that somehow, segue?
Yes. My one is the iconic Burger King tweets,
A fave.
which was for International Women's Day, ironically, which was "Women belong in the kitchen," and that was the tweets. And they had some scheduling issues or a glitch with the technology. Something happened, which meant there was no follow up on the tweet. So all it was that simple statement. So obviously everyone just went crazy.
Of course.
And I mean, the purpose behind it was actually genius. I just wish that they had executed it properly, and they obviously didn't think of the repercussions that would follow. So, I mean, yeah, they had good intentions. It obviously just didn't.
It's just one of those scenarios where hindsight is such a beautiful thing, because we can laugh on it now, but it definitely was. This is a good example of why humans and robots cannot coexist, because technology will always let us down.
Also, I don't want to make a huge note of the correlation, but all of these things have happened on Twitter.
Very true. Very true.
So if you want to avoid a social media nightmare, get off Twitter.
That is great.
Thing is, though, I feel like on Twitter that they are keyboard warriors. Like, they will not hold back. Like when I was younger, whenever I had an issue with a brand or like something had gone wrong, I would tweet their customer service, because you're going to get like an instant response. Which is like, you don't get that on other social media channels. But
I mean, Twitter is one of those platforms that's like TikTok, where anyone can kind of see what you've posted and you can go like a bit viral without meaning to. Whereas like, I feel like if someone posted to their Facebook page, it's kind of a bit more of a closed group. Like, you have to get a lot of traction before you go viral on Facebook that way. So I guess that's kind of the danger of misstepping on Twitter, is that it's very unforgiving as a platform anyway, but there is a lot more room for everyone to see. So that is super unfortunate.
Speaking of missteps, and this is going to segue into another one of my nightmares that I am so uber hyper-focused on because I'm terrified of it. Posting on the wrong account.
We've all been there.
Scheduling's great, but manual posting, especially on Instagram with stories, does me dirty every single time. Whether I'm posting something that's meant to be on another brand, or meant to be on my personal account, or the other way around, where I post a brand's thing on my personal account by accident. It's just every time I'm just so hyper focused. I have to check 3 times, and even once I posted it, I'm like, Did I post that on the right thing?
And the worst part is when the account is connected to Facebook, and so the story also shares to Facebook stories, and even after you delete it, you're never quite sure if it has synced and deleted from Facebook as well. I feel like that's another thing that like every social media manager has experienced at one point in their life, and it is just the way your heart drops when you
realize.
And
then with Instagram story uploads, like there's no cancel button. So like once you've hit post, it will post whether you want it to or not. So you've got to sit there as the little like uploading circle goes round, and you're like ready to delete it the minute it goes live because you've done the wrong thing.
It's like the anxiety is literally just rising as the circle goes around.
Yeah,
like, oh
the 10
God.
seconds where you just have to sit with your decision. You have to sit with your mistake and you have to live it.
Oh God, I hate it. It causes me so much stress.
Isn't that where airplane mode is a bit of a god though? Because you just quickly turn on airplane mode and then it doesn't post, but then I guess with stories there's no way to, like with a post,
cancel
if it fails you can just delete it. But a story, it's just like, well, as soon as you turn it off airplane, I'm just going to carry on uploading.
Instagram said you will commit.
Big time. And we're going to post it on Facebook too.
Oh God, it makes me cringe so bad. And then like kind of going off of that as well, like this may not be an issue for you guys because you've both got like normal personal accounts. However, as someone who does cosplay and dresses up as a grown human being, the idea of clients finding my personal Instagram account is a genuine fear of mine. I know the alternative is to go private, but then I don't get the engagement if I go private. But yeah, the idea of some clients finding my account and being like, why are you dressed like Beetlejuice outside of Halloween? And I'm like,
well, it's not always a downside. I mean, I remember, Katie, when we were hiring for your position, and one of the reasons that not the only reason, you're very skilled and experienced, but because...
It was only the gram.
Well, yeah, because we saw your TikTok. I think you mentioned in your interview that you went viral, and so we looked you up, and we were very impressed, and we thought, what great skills to have on the Drow team.
The irony of me going viral with a Freddie Mercury costume. It's like, you will employ me, but only if I wear the mustache.
Totally. I mean, it can be a double-edged sword. We have an episode coming out next week with a personal branding expert, and we kind of talk about all the benefits of sort of, as a marketer, like, I don't know, having this online presence and a personal brand. But this is the one case where maybe good for potential employers, but when working with clients, it can be a little bit embarrassing.
Exactly. It's like, I will work for your luxury brand and create amazing content for it, but please don't take my own content.
No background checks. No background checks, please.
Do not perceive me outside of working hours, please.
I love that.
This is by no means a segue from what you just spoke about. But I have one more campaign that definitely would have kept people up at night. Especially the social media managers. If this was me, I think I would have cried myself to sleep. But it was the Victoria's Secret Perfect Body campaign. I don't know whether you ever saw it. It was like 2014, 2015. And it was all about them promoting their new bra range called Body. And I don't think they sell them anymore, ironically. That all went down. But the campaign ran with the tagline, The Perfect Body. But it was the three women modelling it were the same body type. So every single one had the same body type, which, you know, obviously got massive backlash. Because they can't just say that one body type is perfect. So obviously everyone else was, you know, keyboard warriors were voicing their annoyance at it. But funnily enough, Dove, I think it was Dove, actually jumped on this bandwagon and promoted their campaign for #IamPerfect.
I love that. Showcasing,
I think it was like 7 different women with different body types, and then they went viral like as a result of the Victoria's Secret shambles of a campaign. But yeah, I just thought it was a brilliant way to kind of like tag on the back of
Yeah.
it. But their campaign was a success, whereas Victoria's Secret obviously.
I love it when brands piggyback off someone else's flop and turn it into their own slay. So that was the most Gen Z marketer thing I've ever said.
You've yassified the podcast.
It's so funny that you brought this up, Ellie, though, because that reminds me, Victoria's Secret have a bit of a history and a pattern for just like putting their foot in their mouth and just being really horrible people, but they've done it again recently because they went through that rebrand probably 2-3 years ago when they became irrelevant basically, so they rebranded to try and be a brand for everyone, but they've reverted back into their own ways recently because they've launched a campaign about ironically it's like you're not perfect, like nobody's perfect, and like something along those lines, but they've chosen Bella Hadid as the model. Which I love Bella Hadid, everyone loves Bella Hadid, but if you're she is like the moment, she is like that scientist came out and said she is the most beautiful woman in the world, and so the irony of coming out with a campaign about be your natural self, or if something along those lines, but you have Bella Hadid as the face of that campaign, is just another epic flop. So,
they could have literally gone for anyone who doesn't have like filters on TikTok to make your face look like hers.
Absolutely.
Like that's the level we're talking.
Totally. I mean, if you still want to use a supermodel and a skinny legend, choose like Winnie Harlow or someone who like kind of projects that image of, you know, like being different or like looking different but still being like fitting into that Victoria's Secret, you know,
fantasy.
Yeah, so it's just another one that you can kind of sit and laugh at, but as a social media manager you're also kind of cringing.
Also though, that's really bad timing because I don't know whether you've seen the viral TikTok sound, which is like I am and it's like linking into people like not eating or like doing things that are just really unhealthy because obviously she is this like supermodel who looks amazing. So I just think that was bad on their kind of like influencer marketing side as well as the social media manager side.
Totally. Like great face of any brand but wrong campaign to
definitely wrong campaign.
I think Victoria's Secret just constantly do that because potentially they just do not have a diverse enough like marketing team. Like so many of these issues could just be avoided if maybe you have a diverse team, you know. And this is kind of like maybe leaning into tips a little bit, so I'll keep this brief. But you know, if you had like maybe some plus size women on the team or less men, you know, that sort of thing could have just avoided this whole thing that they just keep doing.
It's the fact that this is like, it's not, you can't even count on a one hand anymore how many times Victoria's Secret have made a misstep like this. So it's past the point of sort of pitying and just, it's just downright shameful now. But that's a whole separate conversation.
Episode on Victoria's Secret. When?
Stay tuned.
So those were our social media nightmares and somewhat of a shared therapy session at points. Do you share any of these nightmares or did we miss some? Let us know at GiraffeSM. Now it's time for our tips and trick or treat segment. Where we share what we've learned in the world of social media and how you can apply it to your social strategy. This week, we're going to be giving you some tips for avoiding a social media nightmare. Ellie, do you want to go first?
Yes. So my sort of tip is to do with kind of automated replies on social media. So obviously if you're, you know, a brand posts something on say an Instagram feed and you literally get a generic response to your comment, it's not personal, and obviously we know there's been that trend towards like humanizing brands and stuff like that. So I think it's really important to avoid the automated responses, or just avoid not responding to comments altogether. You know, engagement is really key, and interacting with your followers is really important, especially to kind of improve the general engagement metrics for your brand. So my tip is to implement community management, and that will kind of avoid that horror altogether, basically.
Definitely. There is kind of been a trend towards automation on social, and it does, like, perhaps if you're a really large brand, like, it's necessary. Especially like a lot of brands on social media, people send them a DM past working hours. They have an automated message that comes back and says, hey, like, we will get back to you. We're just closed at the moment. So I think that type is really good. But yeah, you're right. Like, there are some examples where automation can go wrong, and it ties into like feeling like brands aren't reading the room or showing they care. And so I think where, you know, some of our listeners might work for small businesses or are small business owners, this is a really, really good tip.
No, I totally agree. Like, you know, I think automation, when used well, is really helpful, especially like you said, Chloe, when like outside of business hours, it kind of gives you that bit of like buffer space to respond, because people do expect like an instant response. Or to have like, you know, have you ever like messaged a brand and you have like a chain response almost? So it's like you can go for like branches or services, that sort of thing. So I think as well, like that can be really helpful and take some strain off of you when it like, if you just click one of them and then it sends you straight to the page you want to be on, you know? So I think, you know, that's a really good tip, Ellie. Chloe, do you want to hop in next with yours?
Certainly. My tip kind of is a tip based off some of the nightmares that we've spoken about at the top of the episode, and that is to set notifications to know when your post is out. A lot of us, I'd be surprised if any of our listeners don't use scheduling software. It's just the way forward. It makes life so much easier, especially at an agency. Like, we can't be across like, you know, 5 to 10 clients manually uploading. It's just not the vibe. But what tends to happen is what we've seen with Burger King is sometimes your scheduling software can fail you. Sometimes your follow-up tweet that puts context to the extremely sexist tweet that you just posted, you know, it fails to go out, or it didn't go out when you thought it was going to go out. So setting notifications that mean you can kind of go and check on that post and correct any mistake you see instantly is just a really smart way to do. You don't have to do it for every post, but if you're maybe posting something risky or something that needs to come out in a timely manner, like the Queen's death, for example, not that you could schedule that, but just as an example, I think it's, a really good idea just to make sure, even with my TikTok, maybe if I saw as soon as it went out that there was a spelling mistake, I could have re-uploaded it, and then the fallback wouldn't have been as bad. But yeah, I think there are certain scenarios where this is a really good tip.
No, I totally agree. And like, I mean, this is maybe stepping back into social media nightmare territory again. But like, I don't know about you guys, but I've been caught out so many times on Sprout before between the AM and the PM. Especially with 12. Because like sometimes it doesn't like list it right for some reason. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll schedule this post for like 11:30. And like, I mean AM, but actually it goes out at PM. And I'm like, how did I get this so wrong? So yeah, I totally agree, Chloe. Like, you know, if you're expecting a post to go out at 11:30 and it's not there when you check, you know, that could mean that you're avoiding it going out at like a really like inopportune time.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree. That's such a good idea. So my tip, it's kind of a quick one and it's a bit of a basic one really. One thing you really don't want to do, and is a huge nightmare, is losing access to your account or your brand's account. So there's a few easy ways to get around that. This feels like absolute backs to basics, but you know, obviously make sure you've got their login saved in a secure location. So then if you do get logged out of their account, you don't have to go to your client and be like, what's your login? Because that's just unprofessional. But also setting up double authentication. It is a bit of a faff to log in, but you have double authentication and you'll resent it every time you do it, but you won't resent losing your account to someone like getting into it. So you can set this up with either linking it to your mobile, so you get a text code to let you in, or things like Instagram also provide like backup codes, which basically act as like a second password to get in. This feels like a really simple tip, but like the last thing you want is for someone else to get into your account that shouldn't be in there. You know, I don't know if you guys remember, but like a few years ago there was like this whole thing where like personal accounts were just being like taken over by like these Ray-Ban sellers or whatever. I don't know if that was just a very niche thing that some of my friends experienced, but like it was a thing.
Or even there's that example of, which we could have mentioned in the nightmares, where HMV, like I think they like fired a bunch of their employees, but they all still had the logins to their social accounts, and they were tweeting again on Twitter, they've just fired us, and like just basically blasting them from the HMV account. So I just had to interject with that.
No, that's such a good point, because it does just protect your account from anything that you don't want to be on there happening.
Totally. I think that's a really good one. And I think especially if you're like a freelance social media manager, or you work in an agency like we do, where there are kind of multiple people dipping in and out of these accounts, to have those two-factor authentications or those backup codes is just a really like good way to safeguard and kind of cover your own back.
Well, that's all we've got time for today. If you enjoyed this week's episode, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. And if you'd like to leave us a review on your favourite podcast app, we'd really appreciate it. We've been Giraffe Social Media, you've been amazing, and we'll see you next time.